Welcome to another episode of Asexualized, my asexual life. This is the place to be for education about asexuality and all things asexual. I share my own asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. If you haven't come across this channel before, I am Sandra Bellamy. I'm the author of Asexual Perspectives, 47 Asexual Stories, Love, Life and Sex, a celebration of asexual diversity. I'm also the founder of asexualise.com and the founder of Asexualise Academy. So what are the answers? We're going to be asking that question or questions very shortly, and we're going to be exploring. Hello, Michael. Nice to see you. To see you, nice. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate that. So today I had a couple of messages come through via my chat bubble on my asexualise.com site. Now, if you've gone on to asexualise.com lately, you'll notice that the shop has disappeared. So it's highly likely that I won't be returning the shop on there. I've had a lot of technical problems with the shop on there. And it although it looks nice on the front side, on the back end, it's caused me no end of trouble. So probably it will be returning to a site which has got the blog posts, which are currently back on there on the front page, and resources site, rather than having a shop on there. Anyway, on that asexualise.com site, I have a chat bubble where people can message me if they're looking for products, services, or whatever they want help with, basically. And this goes through to my email. Now, I haven't gone on that email for a while. It's an email address I specifically use just mostly for the chat bubble, and it's a Gmail address, so that I kind of have to keep when I cleared my cookies the other day, I have to reinstall it. But obviously with all the upset over Chestnut, I'm still kind of catching up on things that I haven't had chance to do, because today I've been busy doing lots of stuff for Cyber Monday. And anyway, to cut a very long story short, I had these two messages that were sent a few days ago to me. One of them was from a father who was concerned about his son because his son had been bullied at school to do with asexuality, and he wanted my advice. So that was out of the blue, and he seemed to not know what asexuality was, but wanted to know about it to help his son, which was great. So I gave him some advice back. And I also got an email from a person who said that my wife is asexual. I'd like something to help me to feel more I'd like something to help us to feel more comfortable about it. So that question was obviously a very difficult question, in the sense, you could ask yourself, what specifically are you looking for? But the answer's hi, Pearl. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining me. So when he said that, so just to reiterate to Pearl, I had two emails I'm just talking about. One was a father who was worried about his son being bullied to do with asexuality, and his son, I didn't mention, was 13 years old. So yeah, and the other one was about a guy who messaged me to do with his wife being asexual, and they wanted to feel more comfortable about it. So obviously by the second message, you're not sure whether it's him who wants to feel more comfortable about it, or both of them. He said they. So he's like, oh, that's what I'd like, something to help me. So I get a lot of people messaging me, and they ask me a multitude of questions. I get emails, I get private messages, I get people asking me in person if they come to an asexual meetup sometimes. And, a lot of the time they ask me the same sort of questions. So they ask me questions like, can I be asexual if I watch porn? Can I be asexual if I masturbate? Can I be asexual if I like doing some touching? That type of thing. I also get a lot of people saying that, they don't really have anyone to relate to. They don't really, and other people saying things like, I can't come out as asexual because people wouldn't understand. and other people, hi Heather, and other people ask me a lot of questions about relationships. So they ask me, so can an asexual be with a sexual in a relationship, and how would that work? I get other people private messaging me asking me, so Sandra, do asexuals actually ever find another asexual to be with? Does it ever happen? So that's another question I get asked a lot about. And I just get multiple questions over and over again. And this has been going on for a number of years. And last year, I released a book, and all the answers to these questions, the majority of them, are in my book. And people seem to want to ask me the same questions over again, whereas the answers are all in the book. And you know, it's frustrating for someone like me who it can take ages to get around everyone to answer all the questions. And I keep coming back to the book, and that's why I wrote the book. It took me a year to write the book. And I specifically did it because I wanted to answer everyone's questions as much as possible. The Asexual Perspectives 47 Asexual Stories book I wrote answers pretty much every question that people were asking me in private message. And I specifically created a questionnaire with multiple questions based on the messages I received from people. So, and I asked the 46 asexuals that were interviewed for my book the same questions so that you could see the variation across the asexual spectrum. My book was done very strategically because it was basically to show what asexuality is and the spectrum without giving you just textbook definitions. Textbook definitions are all very well and good, but they don't necessarily, show how they function in the real world, as it were. There's a site called Avon Wiki, which is the asexuality version of Wikipedia. And it's great because it gives you lots of definitions of heteromantic, biromantic, panromantic, but trying to put these in actual context of real life and what it means for relationships and how we interact with the world, how we live in the world, how we view the world, how we view love, life and sex. That's a very different matter. Textbook definitions are a great starting point, but they don't actually go into detail about what it feels like, what the experience is like emotionally, physically, to be asexual in this highly sexualized world. And that is why I wrote the book and asked all these 46 asexuals across the globe and across the asexual spectrum. I specifically asked them the same questions so that you could see the variation across the spectrum. I was very, very specific in the way I did it. And the Amazon reviews speak for themselves about how good the book is. But I can't, emphasize enough how the book answers the majority of questions that you would have about asexuality. Because in this book, which I'm going to, show you, I'm going to read an excerpt from it in a minute. I'm going to read some of Zoe's story. In this Asexual Perspectives book, right, this is what it looks like. It's a huge book. It's over, going to the back page, it's 540 something pages of text. It's huge. It's a huge, huge book, right? And you may be thinking, well, I've interviewed 46 asexuals. Where's the 47th? Because it's called 47 Asexual Stories. It's my own personal story. But the difference between the people who I interviewed for the book and the people and myself is that I answer the questions as me. I'm not anonymous. Everyone else in the book had the choice to be anonymous, go under an alias name, or to be their real name. But the actual answers are all their real answers. And the way I've done the book is very different to, other books on the market because it's told in their own language. So I've mixed American English with British English, which as a writer, with the rules, you're not supposed to mix two different types of English. But I wanted people to say things in their own true, authentic voice. There's colloquialisms in there. If you don't know what that means, it means slang. There's terms in there that's used in their own dialect from where they live and how they've grown up and been brought up, what they say. So there is some slang. There is some shorthand 547-page book about a day of reading for me. Sounds like a good book. It's a really good book. Really, really good book. It's amazing. And the way I've done it is every person in the book's got a chapter of their own, so that for people who are slow readers, because I personally am a slow reader, even though I love writing, reading's very difficult for me because I am very slow. So I purposely, every person in the book has got its own chapter. So that what you can do, you can read a chapter a day if you're a slow reader like me. See the contents, I don't know if you can see it, but every person in the book has their own chapter. So you can just go to someone's own personal story and you can just read theirs. So you can read a story a day if you're slow at reading, which I personally am. And that's why I specifically did the book like that, because it's much more easier to read. I personally prefer it in print. It is more pricey in print, but that is because of the costs that go into printing this book with a glossy cover as well. You know, it's huge. It's huge. I don't make much money on at all on these books, and it's also an expanded distribution. So basically, people can buy it in bookshops all across America. If you go into a bookshop in America, you buy it on Amazon, or you can request it from a bookshop if you don't want to actually get it on Amazon, because there's still some people who want to buy from a shop. And it's actually in 6 libraries around the UK as well, so including the British Library. So also, we can mark our favourite stories by chapter on table of contents. Yes, Pearl, you can. It's really good advice. There was a person who came to the UK Asexuality conference, and she watches this channel. Kelly's her name, and she literally came with my book for me to sign it. And she'd been marking like all off with highlighter pen all the relevant stuff that pertained to like her life and what she was interested in. There was tons of it. I just saw like this I think it's pink and orange highlight everywhere, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And she'd only known she was asexual for 3 months, and she found the book so helpful. And I know the book's helped other people. Now you may be thinking, oh well, I'm an aromantic person. It doesn't matter. There's aromantic people. I call them aromantic. A lot of the people in the asexual community call people who lack romantic attraction aromantics. I've always called them aromantics. I'm comfortable with that. But aromantics, there are aromantics in this book. So do not think just because you're aromantic and it's titled Love, Life and Sex that there aren't aromantics in the book, because they are. And their points are very, very valid, because they talk about how they feel that friendship is not valued as much as a romantic relationship. You know, and they feel that it shouldn't be like that. They feel that a friendship relationship should be valued as, you know, as much as romantic relationship. And to them, they probably wish they were valued even more than that, you know, because aromantics, the majority, you know, they don't want a relationship. But the ones that do, you know, they have like things like a queer platonic relationship. There's someone who's had a long distance queer platonic relationship for about 2 years in this book. They met at summer camp, and then they're going to meet up again, and they're going to have house together and stuff like that. So also in the book, you know, people ask me, like I said, well, how can a sexual be with an asexual? That answer's in this book. There's people who are sexual who are making relationships work with asexuals, or vice versa. So this book is coming from the perspectives of asexuals. So it explains how they work things out with their sexual partner, how they make such a relationship work when they're asexual. And there's also a person in this book who's asexual, who's been with their partner, asexual partner, for over 4 years. So there's people who are in relationships with asexuals, people who are in relationships with sexuals. There's one person who's in this book who's in a relationship with a sexual person, and the sexual person wasn't bothered about sex. There's another person in the book where they're happy for them to get the sex outside the relationship. So there's a multitude of people in there. There's people that are single in here, a number of them that are single. There's someone who's demisexual in this book, who says how they feel excluded in the asexual community because they're demisexual. And so usually they just say they're asexual because it's easier for their life, but they've only ever felt sexual attraction to the person they're with. So it's really interesting book, and I cannot urge people enough to get a copy. At the moment, the Kindle copy's reduced because I've reduced it for Cyber Monday, and I'm going to keep it in line with the Amazon deals that are ending on Friday. So if you want a copy of the book, the Kindle book is lower in price than it usually is, but it's inexpensive anyway. People spend more money on a pizza than they would do on my Kindle book. Do you see what I mean? And the amount of value and the amount of answers you get from reading this book is amazing. There's one person who I got a review from recently, and they said, wow, they opened the book up and how many stories that they could relate to. And it just, it made them feel so much better because they knew they weren't alone. And I know someone who watches this channel told me that this book changed their life, that they thought that if they liked certain things or did certain things, then that would mean they weren't asexual or valid and they'd find it hard to fit in. But they know that this book's changed their life because they know that they're valid, because they can see how many differences there are across the asexual spectrum, and that we all belong there and we're all valid. And we all have, different ways of being and doing, I ask these people really intimate questions about porn, about BDSM, about kinks, about fetishes. I personally, myself, I don't get involved in anything to do with BDSM. But I get, people who ask me stuff like that. Can asexuals be into BDSM? And if so, how does that work? If they're asexual, So, and can asexuals have fantasies, and all that type of thing? Well, people answer a lot of these questions in this book. I did in the book say when I was interviewing people for the book, I said, if there's any questions you don't want to answer, you cannot answer them and I won't put them in there. So there's a few people that have a few questions they didn't answer that I didn't put in the book because they didn't answer them. But I asked the same questions throughout the whole of everyone I asked. So I asked the same questions too, so that you could get a very good idea of how it is across the asexual spectrum. I didn't, a lot of people who write personal stories of people, they write like a commentary, like they're an outsider talking about their findings, if you know what I mean. And I didn't want to do this with this book. I wanted to make this book so different. The fact that they were actually answering the questions, and they answered the same questions, but the way the spacing is done in the book, it specifically will mean that after a while you'll get so used to the questions being asked that they will become second nature. So you'll just focus in and hone in on the answers that people are given. But the reason why I repeated the same questions is because you cannot get a really good overview of all the asexual spectrum if you're asking people all different types of questions. Because you're like being selective then. It's kind of like a puppet master, and you've got a puppet and you're kind of telling the puppet what to do. Do you see what I mean? I don't want to be like that. I wanted to ask the same questions across the board to make it fair and equal for all the people. The difference being that I have to answer them outright, bluntly, and they're very intimate answers. So I told you that I was going to read someone's story from the book. Now, I've called them stories because, like I say in the beginning of the book, when people are giving the answers to their questions, they're basically telling their real life story. You can see how their story is of their life through the way they answer the questions. And so that's why I called them stories. And one of the questions I asked, I'm going to read Zoe's answer out because I think it's really relatable. So Zoe, I asked, how difficult is it for you to be asexual in a sexualized world? She said it's difficult in that I feel I am still hiding part of my true identity. Many people perceive me as strange because I don't flirt, don't engage in telling ribald jokes, don't have a partner in my life, don't go gaga over so-and-so hot celebrity, don't wear shirts that put most of my breasts on display for everyone else's viewing pleasure. They feel something is off about me because they can't pinpoint what. I won't deny being an asexual if someone asks me, but no one has. Oh, by the way, the link to my Asexual Perspectives book is in the description down below. So if you want to check it out, get a copy, please do so. It's down below. So she carries on. This is another difficulty. I don't have anyone in my life who would understand asexuality. And, that's why I wrote the book as well, because there's so many people that feel alone. They feel that they don't they've got no one to relate to. No one relates to them. They don't fit in the world. They're misunderstood, and they find it hard to comprehend their own asexuality. Some people, I know some asexuals that have been in denial of their asexuality, and some of them have been in denial and then come back months later to asexual dating sites, for example, and said, actually, I am asexual, but I was like, couldn't accept it back then. So, even if you haven't been able to accept it, there comes a point in time when you have to kind of accept it about yourself in order to get on well in your life. But it is difficult. But this book makes it easier because, you've got 47 people in this book that are asexual. And it's like, you definitely know you're not alone in the world. So he continues. Also, I'm fed up with the overtly sexual messages in our society that are so negative for women. From fashion... Oh, I'll stop a minute. I've never been in denial, but I have felt alone, which is why I joined Avon. I don't know any other asexuals in real life. Thank you, Michael. That's why this book would help you out. I know you'd like this book as well, because it's got aromantics in it. And also, I have to say, if you haven't got a Kindle, I don't have a Kindle anyway myself. I have the Kindle app on my Mac. And you can read any book with the app. It's free to download. You can have it on desktop. You can have it on... It doesn't have to be an Apple product either. You can have it on Android or anything. So you can put it on Android phone, you can put it on a tablet, you can put it on a desktop. I have the Kindle literally on my desktop, my Apple Mac. I buy a Kindle book and it automatically downloads to my Kindle app. I just click on my Kindle app, look in my Kindle library and read whatever books I want. So I don't have a Kindle. You don't have to have a Kindle to have a Kindle book. And like I said, the book's so inexpensive for the amount of resources that you've got and the amount of information, the amount of answers to all your questions. It's really worth it, If you think about a meal, you go out for a meal, you buy a pack of sandwiches, it goes in one mouth and out the other end, and it's gone forever. With a book, you've got it to keep, even in Kindle, even though it's digital, you can still keep it forever and a day, and you can put it on your other devices as well. So it's really good. So if you buy it once, you can put it across your other devices. I've enabled that feature on there. So I'll carry on with Zoe's story. So she was saying that she's also fed up with the overtly sexual messages in our society that are so negative for women. From fashion, movies, TV, print media, billboards, etc., the message is still that a woman's body, that a woman's body is only... Sorry. The message is still that a woman's only validity is for sex, which thereby invalidates me, because a person's a woman. Boobs and butts, that's all what a woman is good for. As a woman and a human being, this message is insulting. As a consumer, it does not make me want to buy these products. It's the 21st century, and young girls are still being given that damaging message. Dresses must be this short, shoes must be this high, makeup must be plastered on, all for you to be acceptable enough to step out your door and into public view. And I just love, Zoe's story, because I can relate to it. I'm sure we all can relate to that, How many times does society shove it in your face that you need to be full of sex appeal, wear this makeup, wear that skirt, wear that dress, if it's guys, have a six-pack, I'm not interested in that. I don't get any pleasure from looking at a guy with a musty chest. It does nothing for me, It's all about alpha males, isn't it, as well? And women, being, nails painted, lipstick on, boobs out. And, I have never been that type of person to have that mindset from a young age. I even went on and on at my parents for years about how I hate nudity, how I was disgusted it was in newspapers. Like the Sun newspaper, I went through denial in a large school where every sexuality was welcome. I moved to a school where there was less than 100 people. Yes, Heather, it's degrading society. Thank you, Pearl, for sharing that. Yeah, it's a very degrading society, and it's really difficult, when I said at the beginning of this video, when I had a father messaging me about their 13-year-old son being bullied at school about asexuality, it's just such a shame, and I wrote him quite a long email back and said, the most important thing is he gets support, and that you tell him that he's, you know, he's perfectly okay as he is, and, you know, that he can have loving relationship, friendship without sex, you know. And I said it's actually a good thing, because if your son is not interested in sex or sexual activities and he's 13, you don't have to worry about him creeping off. Ooh. If you're anything but straight, that's not allowed. Many people tell me that I need social skills because I don't date. Well, Pearl, you don't have to date if you don't want to. I want a romantic relationship, so I will go on dates. But, you know, I haven't actually had a date with an asexual yet. I've had, you know, I said that I wasn't going to date heterosexual guys again because they're just a nightmare, to be honest. They all want sex, and, you know, I don't really want a sexual guy. But about 6 or 7 weeks ago now, I did actually date a heterosexual guy, but it was, you know, it was like I just had one date with him, and then I got a sore throat and chest infection because I kissed him and he had nicotine on his tongue and I got it on mine. So yeah, it's a long story, but if you watch the other videos, basically that was the end of that, because I can't be with the smoker. Yeah, I never smoke myself, and yeah, not be doing that again. And then last year I dated a heterosexual for 2 months, but it's because like I really desire the kissing and the romance, because I'm a hyper romantic heteromantic. But for a lot of aromantics, for example, they don't need a relationship. They don't want one. Not all aromantics though, because I know some that are in relationships. One person that I know is married and aromantic. I know a friend of mine's aromantic. He's actually seeing a guy. So, you know, like some aromantics, they can be in relationships and are in relationships. So just because they lack romantic attraction doesn't mean to say that they don't want a relationship. But, you know, for the people who don't want to date, that's great. I think it's difficult if you're asexual and want to date but don't know how. That's what I think is not so good. If you really want to date, if you really want a relationship and you don't know how to do it, that's why I do a lot of dating advice and relationship advice on this channel. I run 3 asexual dating groups on Facebook, so I kind of know what I'm talking about, and I've been on asexual dating sites myself for 4 years. I still haven't found the right asexual guy for me yet, but I live in hope. I don't give up. It's the main thing. So yeah, so I think this is, you know, this book is you know, the answers to most people's asexual questions, and it's really helpful. I know it's helped a ton of people, but I just wished I could get it in more people's hands so it could help more people. I'm going to read you another answer to Zoe's question as well. So I asked her another question, like I asked the same question to all the asexuals. And this was, can you tell me about a time when you've had to deal with intrusive questions or a difficult situation due to your asexuality and what happened? So this is a question that I ask all the asexuals in this book. So you'll have like 47 people who are asked this question. And I think this is really good because, you know, I'm asking them what happened, so you can get some advice from some of them about, you know, type of things not to say to people and advice on what to say to people if you want that, you know. But there's some really good advice in this book. So this is Zoe, most of my uncomfortable moments. So she's listed them. When someone asks me about my personal status, are you married? Do you have a boyfriend? And feels awkward when I reply no. They've no idea how to continue the conversation with someone who is out of their comfort zone, i.e. not fitting the normal mould. That makes me uncomfortable, and I, or they, usually just end up walking away. So another uncomfortable moment for Zoe. During events geared more towards couples. Christmas party at your workplace when spouses are invited to accommodate you, or accompany you, she's put. Not accommodate, accompany you. So Christmas parties at your workplace when spouses are invited to accompany you. Valentine's Day, New Year's Eve when everyone seems to have someone to kiss. Go on holidays solo, going to restaurants solo, going to the theatre solo. These seem to make my weirdness all the more apparent, which makes me uncomfortable, which is why I rarely do these things. Now, if you know me and you watch me on this channel, you know that I self-date a lot. I have no problem in taking myself out on dates. I go to theme parks on my own. I go to zoos on my own. I go to aquariums on my own. I go for meals on my own. I go to the cinema on my own. I even went to Disneyland Paris on my own for my birthday last year. 21st mindset birthday. That was amazing. I loved every minute. My dad did pay for that as a special one-off for me, but I went on my own because I had two friends that didn't want to go with me that I asked, and they said, well, why don't you go on your own, one of them? And I'm like, yep, I'm not going to miss that opportunity. So I do loads of things on my own, but I actually plan to go to the cinema on a date with myself. You know, I plan to take myself out for a meal. I plan these things, you know. Not because they're necessary for a special occasion, but just because I want to go on a self-date. Because self-dating is so important for the soul. But it's interesting in this book to see the contrast of different opinions and different feelings about the same sort of thing. You know, obviously Zoe's quite distraught about doing things solo. She thinks that people think she's weird, and that enhances her weirdness, so that makes her not want to do it. Whereas with me, I couldn't care less or give a toss what people think. I really couldn't. I live my life for me. You know, a lot of the time, people who are not asexual, they're not necessarily going to like me anyway, because they'll think I'm far out and different anyway to them. And people often don't like what's different to them. But I don't care if they don't like me. I'm not born and put on this planet to be liked by everyone. I think this is actually a mistake a lot of asexuals make. They worry so much about what society and people think, when actually they don't like society because they don't fit into it anyway. So why even worry about what society thinks when clearly society isn't geared towards asexuality anyway, and it's not geared towards us. So if society is so obsessed with sex and we're not, why even care what they think? It doesn't matter. You know, I often say to myself, these people that mock people, that are horrible or don't understand, who don't like me or don't like others, that's fine, because they're not going to care whether you live or die, to be quite honest. And when it comes to the end of your time on this planet, you have to live and put your hand on your heart and say, I live my life with no regrets. And I did it because of me, not because of what society says, or my teacher says, or my colleagues say, or my friends say, you know, or relatives say, or family says. You need to live your life for you. It's so important. I was talking to an asexual friend recently, and I was saying to him, you know, he was saying, oh, you know, I can't, you know, I've got to keep the guy I'm seeing, you know, secret from my parents. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't do, you know, I don't do stuff like that. If I have a boyfriend, right, I'll kiss him in front of my parents. My parents don't like public displays of affection. My parents don't really like that. But I couldn't care less, and they know it. My dad's like, oh, you know you couldn't care less. I'm like, nope, really can't. I live my life for me, you know. I don't live it for my parents. I love my parents dearly, but I will do what the heck I want. It's my life. Do you know what I mean? I'll live it how I want to live it, not because my parents or family or society dictates to me. That's not why we're here on this planet. We're here on this planet to fulfill our life and to give our life meaning from ourselves. And we're here to live our own purposes and our own path, not to copy other people's, you know, not to fit in with the crowd. We were never born for that. You know, we're never born to be sheep. We're born to stand out and proud of who we are. And I think unfortunately, a lot of people, not just asexuals, but a lot of people in the world don't even know that. They're too scared. I'm not scared to be who I am, because I live my life for me. Life is so, so short. It can be gone in a flash. And if you look back in your deathbed and you're thinking, well, I didn't do this, that, and the other because I was too scared about what people think, that's not good. Don't be like that. Don't be like that at all. Just live your life for you and enjoy it. You know, I couldn't care less what people think. If people don't like me, okay, you don't like me, I'm not bothered. You know, there's thousands of people you will like in the world, thousands of people that I'll like, thousands of people that like me. It's fine. There's enough people to go around. We've all got different tastes. So, going back to Zoe, her third uncomfortable moment. Right, refusing to date men. If someone tells me they have the perfect guy for me and can set me up with a blind date, they always end up looking at me as if I sprouted two heads when I answer no. Them, what do you mean, no? I thought you weren't seeing anyone. Me, I'm not. Them, then why don't you want this blind date? Me, because I don't feel like it. Them, why not? People just don't know. People just don't get how a woman could not want to date a man nor be part of a couple with a man. So, you know, That's what Pearl was saying, wasn't it, about dating? That you don't seem bothered, you're not bothered about dating, which is absolutely fine. You see, there's other people like you that are not into dating either. So I want to read this from Zoe as well, because I asked all the asexuals what are the positives about being asexual, because although there's loads of people who are asexual who are in the community on asexual dating sites, you can meet people in asexual meetups. 1 in every 100 people are technically asexual because we're 1% of the population. But there's still quite a lot of, I feel, negativity about asexuality. There's people that don't understand it. People who are asexual themselves don't necessarily always feel good about it because they feel like they'll not get anyone to love them. They feel unloved, they feel misunderstood, uncared for, they feel shunned by society. And so sometimes it's really hard. It's like drowning in a pool of negativity because you're asexual. And I don't want that to happen. I try to make this channel as empowering and positive about asexuality as possible. I love being asexual. If you gave me the choice of me being heterosexual or hetero-asexual, I would choose hetero-asexual every single time. Every single time. Because I am really not interested in sex. I don't want it. I don't need it. And it's not good for me because I don't want it. I have had it in the past. My ex was good at that, but that's it. That's gone. I don't need it in my life. I never needed it back then. However, kissing's a completely different matter for me. I really desire kissing badly because I love it so much. But at the moment, I'm just focusing on other things. So, Zoe, what are the positives about being asexual? Freedom. Emotional and physical freedom. I love this answer from Zoe. I absolutely love it. That's not true. There are people will love you. Exactly, Heather. There are people that will love you without sex. There are people, but I'm saying this is one of the fears people have. This is one of the negative fears a lot of asexuals have. That, because I'm in asexual dating groups. I run the asexual dating groups, and people feel that they won't have anyone to love them. But a lot of these people, they don't love themselves. That's the problem either. Some of them are really down about themselves, like, I don't like myself. I'm horrible. No one will like me. There's nothing good about me. And when they're like that, it's kind of like, if they're not loving themselves, they're going to feel unloved because they need to love themselves before anyone else will. If, with all intents and purposes, with all the best will in the world, if you're in a dating site trying to attract other people to you, if you just writing, exactly, that's really sad, Heather. I know there's someone in my in my asexual friends group actually, and I put, for, I don't know if you watched the previous video where I said for Black Friday, I said, for every letter of the alphabet, BLACK, write 5 positive things about you, with one of those letters. And this one person's like, there's nothing positive about me, which isn't true. I can tell she's a friendly person, really, I presume it's a she. I should say they and that or them because I don't know for certain. So, they seem very friendly, They say that they're autistic, which I know must cause them hard, I know some autistic people find it hard to communicate and make friends. But she was on about, I think it's, sorry, I shouldn't say, they were on about, on the, that not many people want to be their friends, but it's really hard because I did say to her that I did say to them that no one can actually friend you because you've got your friends button. I am greyed out, so no one can be friends with you on Facebook. And they're like, oh, well, I do that because I'll get worried and fearful about other people. And that's because of who's on the internet. But that's all very good and well. But if you're trying to make friends, you need to open up because it's no good shutting yourself off completely from the outside world. Because if you do, you're keeping out bad people, but you're keeping out all the good people as well in your life, Life is about risk. Even when we breathe, we risk. Do you know what I mean? Even being alive is a risk. Because anything can happen, couldn't it? To your house, to your home, to anything, to anyone. Do you know what I mean? At any given time, it's all a risk. Even breathing's a risk. But, the best thing to do is to live a life of less fear as possible, Everyone has fears, but it's just good to keep working on them, pushing through them as much as possible, And I used to be so scared of going on the internet. Prior to 2012, I was like a scared cat. I'm like, oh no, I don't want to go on it. And I'm not scared at all anymore. As you know, I'm all over the internet. People are like, oh, here you are again. I'm like, yep. So I don't worry about stuff like that anymore. But I used to, so I do understand it. But you have to try and overcome as many fears as possible in your life. Some you might, some you may never, some you will, some you might, some you may never actually overcome. But, all you can do is keep trying your best. But if you give up and say, shut yourself off from the outside world and say, that's it, I'm not doing anything, then it's not going to help, is it? So anyway, going back to Zoe's positive story, because we want positive stuff about asexuality. She said that the positives about being asexual are freedom, emotional and physical freedom. No more living a life of pretense, of trying to conform to someone else's standards and appear normal. By having a partner and or children the way society demands that you do, which the lack of either will earn you a barrage of, why aren't you married? Why don't you have a boyfriend? When are you going to have kids? Have I got a blind date for you? You'll love him. So yeah, these are some of the questions that asexuals obviously get asked. I don't, because I haven't wanted kids since I was 15, and my parents know that, so they always knew they weren't going to get grandchildren out of me. They've always known that since I've been 15 years old. I've never changed. And again, what's the positive? So he said, no more fear of emotional extortion or coercion, of feeling that I have no choice but to have sex in order to keep a relationship. No more feeling as if I'm allowing my body to be abused and have no control over stopping it. And I think that hits the nail on the head. I really do. Because before I discovered asexuality, I seriously thought I had to have sex in order to be in a relationship. And I got to the stage where I just couldn't physically do it anymore. I couldn't even have dates with any sexual guys at that point in time at all, because I was too darn scared and nearly wetting myself because of the sexual tension and energy from them. It was just too overwhelming and too overpowering for me. I couldn't bear it anymore. And you will read my own personal story in this book. You can actually go to Amazon and read my personal story for free. You don't even have to buy the book. You can read my personal story for free, and you can read Philippa Duke's for free, because it's a look inside me. Because this book is over 543 pages, then when you sex this emotional head going, yeah, I know, I agree with you, Heather. Even if you go and look at the beginning part of this book, you can read mine and Philippa Duke's story. Philippa Duke's story is so heart-wrenching. It's just, it's just incredible that she had the guts to say her story. But I hope, even if you are in and ahhing whether to get a copy of it or not, I would urge you to go and get a copy, because it can change your life for the better forever, this book. I really believe that. I'm not just saying that. I really believe that, because even writing it helped change my life, because I was still learning about asexuality myself whilst I was writing it. And, I learned new stuff all the time in here, and it's full of humour as well. This asexual perspective, it's 47 asexual stories, but it's full of humour. It's got some really, really funny parts in it. But like I said, even if you're not sure, just go on Amazon and look at the look inside me. You can read my whole personal story. You can't see my answers to the interview questions, because you get to ask me the interview questions at the end. So you can't read that part, but you can read my own personal story of what happened. But, to just touch about what happened is I learned I was asexual because I went to see a counsellor. And they said I must have sex in order to keep a good guy. That's what they said to me. And I go for the problem that I couldn't have sex anymore. Imagine what that did to my mind, having someone and emotions saying to me that she turned to me and said, I'm seriously worried about you. You're going to have sex if you want to keep a good guy. And she said it with such conviction, such seriousness, that it was like a life or death situation. Like, not it's possible to have love without sex. It's like, it's impossible. You're going to have sex, and that was the last thing I wanted to hear, That was the very, very thing I didn't want to hear. And it was just horrible. Absolutely horrible. But the only good thing about it is it made me go home and Google, I love kissing but not sex. And that's how I discovered I'm asexual. And the rest they say is history, but obviously there's a lot more to it than that. But it was just like, it's just like, how can someone say that, How can a counsellor, as well of all people, say that? It was just horrendous. to have that, you know. But I'm glad I found out I was asexual. That was 2014. I've lived pretty much all my life thinking I was a heterosexual. And the reason why I thought I was a heterosexual is because I do get aroused and I do love kissing and romance. And I didn't understand that arousal's not the same thing as sexual attraction back then. I had no idea. I thought it was exactly the same thing. But I've never ever looked at any of my past boyfriends, even though I was really attracted to them, I ever thought I actually want sex with them. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's a really liberating thing. Oh, sorry, I'm getting something in my eye now. I think that's a really liberating thing about being asexual, is that, you don't have to have sex in order to keep a good guy, because there are good guys that are asexual. I haven't met the right one for romance yet, but I've got 3 really, really amazing asexual friends that keep in contact with me regularly, and more asexual friends. They don't keep in contact with me as much, but I've got a lot more asexual friends now, and I love it. And I see asexuals in person at my meetups, and spend time with them. It's just incredible. I cannot tell you how asexuality changed my life for the better. For finally, I feel like I'm understood. Finally, I feel like I've got people who relate to me. I relate to them on an equal level. I don't feel that, that anyone's trying to understand me on purpose. I feel like they naturally understand me, if you get my meaning. I feel like, I have people who really care about me, really love me in a friendship manner, and they really want me around, and they really like spending time with me and enjoy my company, and I really relish that. I really treasure it, and it makes me feel bad, because it makes me feel like if I don't get a romantic partner, it's not the end of the world. I mean, I would like one, but it's not the end of the world, because I do have some really good asexual friends that are guys, for example. I like male company a lot, and I just think, well, it's good because in years to come, I think what's worrying about being asexual is that, if we don't have partners, and we do like company, some of us really enjoy other people's company, it's kind of like what's going to happen in later years. But I think if we get a lot of friends, asexual friends, it's possible that we can still have friendship company in years to come. I know, obviously, for some people that are aromantic asexuals, or asexuals in general, that's all they ever crave. They just want, company. It doesn't have to be romantic in nature. But because I'm a romantic person, I really would love to have the romantic company as well. Do you know what I mean? But what I'm saying is, even if I don't get that, at least I've got the company of real good genuine friends. I mean, the thing is, we're spread quite far apart all across the UK, so that makes life difficult. But I have got a few people I know in my city, so maybe I just need to spend a little bit more time with them some of the time as well. But I'd say the people I'm closest to, the majority of the time, are the ones that live farther away. But, I mean, I love living on my own, but, you never know what's going to happen in the future, Some people might do house shares. Some people might, live near each other as friends, that type of thing. At least there's more options, do you know what I mean? I mean, I love the flat. I don't ever want to leave where I live, but I don't own this place, It'd be great if I did, but I don't. And I've been here for years of my life, and it's the most beautiful place that I love. But, anyway, I digress. So I'm going to see if there's another story I can read you. So this one is Thomas's story. And this one is, what's your deepest fear, concern, or worry about being asexual? My worst fear is that people will not understand what asexuality means and say that I'm this way simply because I can't get laid, or that they'll think I'm just being snobbish. You see, again, that's one of the things that is said to asexuals, that, oh, you just can't get laid, you haven't had good sex, and all the rest of it. So again, in this book busts through loads of myths and stereotypes about asexuality, My ex was good at sex, so it's not, I'm not asexual because I haven't had good sex. For me, personally, I have had good sex. But I just didn't need it, I didn't ever need it in my life, sex. So I didn't ever want it as in the sense of, oh, let me have sex with you now. Do you see what I'm saying? So yeah, I just think this book is so important because in answer to the question of the title of this book, what are the answers? The answers to the majority of the questions that you could think about to do with love life and sex and asexuality are in this book. You know, you can see worries and concerns that you can relate to. You can see how people solved problems in their life. You can see what people think, and you've got people to relate to. You can see sexual and asexuals together in relationships, asexuals with other asexuals. You can see people in this book that don't want a relationship whatsoever. People who've got lots of friends. Some people who like a sense of community, so they'd like to be living with loads of different people. It's just like the answers are in this asexual perspectives book. You know, and I can't emphasize enough how good it is, even though I wrote it, because, you know, it's not just about me, it's about everyone that took part in this book. So here's an aromantic person, because I know a lot of aromantics watch this channel. Okay, this is Hannah Leigh Steinhardt's story. What's your view on love? Have you been in love before? Well, as an aromantic, I have not been in love and don't really know what romantic love is supposed to feel like. I form close bonds with my friends, but nothing that feels like romance. If you are talking about love in a platonic way, then I feel that a lot, but otherwise, then no. So you see, there are people in this book that are aromantic. And listen to the next bit of Hannah Leigh's story. Are you currently in a relationship? And if so, is it with another asexual? If yes, do they identify the same as you, or how do they identify? Or is it a sexual person, and how is either working out? I'm in a queer platonic relationship with someone, and the subject of sex has never come up, as it is a long distance relationship. We view each other more as extremely close friends who put each other before the world. I know that she is a strong supporter. Oh, I've got to turn the page. I've got two at once. Is a strong supporter of all things LGBTQA plus anything I forgot. And so we've never felt the need to come out to each other. It is working out really well, and we just started writing a book together. We met at a summer camp. This is a person I was talking about earlier. We met at a summer camp 2 years ago and never stopped talking. And even with 90% of our interactions being over text, we know each other inside out. We comfort the other when they've had a bad day, celebrate good test scores, anything. So I just want you to know there's aromantics in this book. Some aren't in relationships at all, and others show you that even if you're aromantic, a relationship is possible if you want one. And the relationship doesn't have to be centered around sex or romantic love whatsoever. I just think that's such an important message to get out on this channel and to people. Again, like I said, this book busts through a ton of myths and stereotypes, you know. People asking in asexual groups, you know, well, why would someone who's aromantic want to be in a relationship if they don't experience romantic attraction? Well, there you have it. Read Hannah Leigh's story. It's incredible. You know, it's incredible. It's beautiful, because she's an aromantic that is in a queer platonic relationship. Yeah, there's no romance involved. You know, and some people, they're like, well, how is that possible? Well, of course it's possible. Love doesn't have to be romantic. Love doesn't have to be sexual. Love just is love. It's between the two people that are involved in it, or more if you're polyamorous. You know? This is Hannah Leigh's next question. What is your view about sex? Have you had sex before? And if so, how did it make you feel? If you haven't, would you? I have not had sex before, and I'm no way interested in it. Just having someone touch me, even in a semi-romantic or sexual way, repulses me. You see? So it doesn't matter what type of asexual you are. You can have love, you can have friendship without sex. And I just think this is such a positive message. I just love the fact that I've been able to put this book out there into the world. I know this book will be around for years to come after I'm gone. And I just urge anyone to get a copy of it, because it can change your life, because you can see that there are people all across the asexual spectrum that you can relate to. Like I said, there are aromantics in this book, just like you who are watching this channel, who don't want a relationship whatsoever as well. So, you know, just take heed that wherever you fall on the spectrum, whatever you know, you love about life and your friends or your family or relationships, you know, it's perfectly valid. You know, perfectly valid. So, you know, there's people, not everyone likes living with someone, you know. I asked them a question like, Silji, what's your view of living with someone? I don't share well and there are complications with living with another. But as long as I have my own room, I guess it would be okay. So not everyone likes living together with other people. I prefer living separately as well. So, you know, there's all sorts of questions in here. You know, do you think sexual arousal and sexual attraction are the same thing or different? Please explain. This is Philippa. Answer. Vastly different in my opinion. Masturbation is a thing, just like how the cogs turn in a machine. The body can experience it, in my opinion. Sexual attraction is wanting someone else's cogs to mingle with yours in a greasy transaction. Arousal is a bodily function. Sexual attraction is a different ballgame. I absolutely love that answer. I love the fact that she's talking about cogs and relating it to sexual attraction and arousal. I think that's really, really good way of explaining it. So, you know, if you haven't already had a peek at this book, go on Amazon, go and take a look. You know, I have said in the blurb, you know, in this book, you will uncover asexuals' deepest fears, concerns, and worries about being asexual. You'll discover what asexuals really believe are the differences between sexual attraction, sexual desire, and arousal. See, I get asked these questions all the time. You know, what's the difference between sexual arousal and sexual desire? What's the difference between, you know, arousal and sexual attraction? If I have arousal, can I be asexual? Is that normal to be aroused? You know, I get all these type of questions. This book answers all that. So in this book, you'll learn what it feels like to have sex as an asexual and how to cope with the sexualized world we live in. You'll find out what an ideal asexual relationship would be like and whether asexuals believe a relationship with a sexual will be fair or not. And you'll get first-hand advice about asexuality from those who are asexual and know what you're going through and what you may come up against. And I think that you know, advice alone is invaluable. So when I asked at the beginning of this video, what are the answers? The majority are in this book. That's why I created it for you. That's why it took me so long. Just imagine all those pages. It's gone through about 15 edits as well. But I have purposely kept it to the people's own language. Purposely. And that was hard. As a writer who's always trying to correct grammar and always wanting it to sound sort of as grammatically correct as possible and know that you're not supposed to mix different types of languages like British English with American English, you know, I had to sort of like grit my teeth sometimes. But I did it on purpose because you know then that I haven't changed what people are saying, you know that I've kept to their original stories and kept to how they speak. I've kept the ums in there, the ahs in there as well, do you know what I mean? I've kept how they wanted their storytelling. And I think that's so important. I think a lot of the time when you're writing a book, you know, I've done a lot of editing. Like I said, there's been about 15 edits on this book, but the editing's been like spelling and grammar that has to be changed, like, and line spacing and silly things like line spacing's a nightmare when you're trying to format a book. So I did have someone helping me for majority of time with that, but it still was a nightmare. So especially when you're a writer and you love writing, but not so conscious about the space until you have to like help out doing that. So anyway, I'm gonna love you and leave you for now. Go and check out the book on Amazon. It is reduced on Kindle at the moment, especially for Cyber Monday, and it's going to go on till Friday this week. So please check it out. If you're watching this video after that time has passed, do get a copy anyway, because it is still really inexpensive. And, you know, you could easily spend that on a few sandwiches and a drink out. Do you know what I mean? So go and get a copy. It'll be worth it. You'll be able to relate to what the other asexuals are saying. You'll be able to learn through their experiences. You'll be able to have that answer to a ton of questions that you keep asking, but afraid to actually ask other people. There's loads of questions I know people are afraid to ask other people because they think that if they ask people that they will be judged or deemed as not asexual. Like, you know, when I'm talking about things like porn and masturbation, you know, a lot of the time it's like, oh, you can't mention that in the asexual world because no one is meant to do that, but they do, some of them, you know what I mean? I personally don't watch porn, but I have masturbated before, and I didn't used to until I found out I was asexual. So that is weird for me, but I'd rather be doing other stuff, to be quite honest. At least I do it, that the better. Anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget, if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do so. Hit that great big bell icon so you get notified of every time I go live now or post a new video. And don't forget to share this video if you think someone will benefit from it. The more shares this video has, the more we spread awareness of asexuality, the more we help each other, and the more we get these videos up in search engine rankings to get asexuality better known. I do this channel all the time to help others, you know. That's what I do it for. Thank you for the thumbs up. If anyone else wants to give me a thumbs up, that's great. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Michael. And thank you so much for everyone who's joined me. I look forward to seeing you on the next live stream. Don't forget to check out my Asexual Perspectives book down below. And also there's a ton of asexual merchandise that is currently reduced in line with Cyber Monday deals. So check it all out below. Click through the links. Have a good look for that. And don't forget, please get a copy of my book for your sake, because I think it will really, really help you out. Anyway, take care and I'll see you on the next video. Bye!